Okay, so quick thought. Really a question for you. So the guys who are in my Agadata share, we spent the last 2 weeks, and we're going to spend next week on a different part of this Agadata, on the Gemara commenting on this week's Parsha, where what happens? What is the main story in this week's Parsha? The Egel and the breaking of the Luchot. So what happens after the breaking of Luchot?
Moshe does tshuva.
There's a multiple levels here and stages of not tshuva quite, right? At the beginning it's not even tshuva, it's just save them, then eventually some sort of tshuva and punishment and etc., etc., etc. Eventually Moshe gets God to the point where he says, fine, I'll give you another set of Luchot, get it ready, bring it up, etc. The Gemara commenting on this, and as we talked about in Agadata, a particular perspective within the Chazal. Bavli seems to only have one opinion, Yerushalmi has two, assumes that those broken Luchot and the new Luchot end up in the same Aron. The Yerushalmi has a machloket about this, whether there were two Arons, in which case the broken were in one and the not broken were in another. And from here we learn that Luchot v'shivrei Luchot munachim ba'aron, and then Chazal make a derivation from that a Talmid Chacham that forgot his learning, his Alzheimer's, dementia, mashayeh, you still are not mivazeh him, right? You don't degrade him. In the Yerushalmi, there's a version that he has kavod ha'aron, maybe a machloket about whether you actually owe him kavod or not. But here's what I was thinking about this morning that I don't really know the answer to. Whether this... There's another midrashic tradition, which either emphasizes the point of this Agadata, or maybe it doesn't work with this Agadata. So in the Agadata shir, what we noted from the Rav, his argument was as follows: that the Luchot had two kedushot. They had an inherent kedusha of tashmishay kedusha, of klei mikdash, etc. And then they had content of Torah. And the point of the Gemara is that a Talmid Chacham who forgot his Torah still has that inherent kedusha, right? The Torah has been through him, it's sanctified him as a person, but he's not a Talmid Chacham anymore, which is why you're not mavazim. You don't know the same kavod. It's a different level. But there's an Agadic tradition that says, well, how did Moshe break the Luchot? Isn't that a terrible thing to do? And this is what we're going to talk about next week, right? Because the Gemara and the Bavli's assumption is that, why did Moshe break the Luchot?
Because he was angry.
Because he was angry, or thought that was the right thing to do. God didn't tell him, and therefore, afterwards, what did God have to tell him? Shkoyach! Right? Shkoyach! I agree with what you did. But there are several midrashic traditions that don't agree with this. So some, as we'll see, think that God actually told him to break the Luchot. But there's one tradition in which, why did he break the Luchot?
Because they were suddenly really heavy.
Why were they? Oh, good. Why were they? This is the tradition I want to talk about.
The letters left.
Very good. Very good. There's a tradition that says that the Luchot, as long as they were Luchot, they carried whoever carried them. They were light. But as soon as the Jews sinned, the letters flew off. It's like they rebelled against this tablets they were on, and now they just became huge pieces of stone, and Moshe just dropped them. He couldn't handle the weight. Now, what's the logic behind that Agadata, right? That midrashic tradition? I think it's in Tanna B'Eliyahu and elsewhere.
But then it wasn't an intentional decision by Moshe.
So clearly part of the intent there of that midrash is that it's not Moshe's intention, it's not his fault. But Toch Gedei, how did they get to that point? Why wasn't it his fault? Because it ceased to be Luchot. Right? If it were Luchot, they were light. But the letters flew off, so they stopped being Luchot, so they didn't have the magical properties of the Luchot, so they shattered. And here's the question I'm unsure about. Is that midrashic tradition, can that be reconciled with the midrashic tradition that the Bavli has? Right? Because the whole argument of the Bavli is that Luchot v'shivrei Luchot munachim ba'aron, because they maintain, as the Rav argued, some level of kedusha. Now, what does this midrashic tradition go against it? On the one hand, you might say, no, it works fine. The Rav's argument works. It has no content whatsoever, but the Torah was once on it, and therefore it maintains kedushat kli sharei, just like the Talmid Chacham, who doesn't remember his Torah, but you're not mevazeh him because the Torah went through him. So on the one hand, you might say this just accentuates the point of the Agadata. But on the other hand, part of me thinks that this midrashic tradition cannot be reconciled with our Gemara, because the whole point of the Agadata and the Bavli is that even though they're broken, at some level they maintain the status of Luchot. But it sounds like the whole point of this midrashic tradition is that they're not Luchot, which is what made them heavy. Right? So you might have to come up with this weird middle thing, which is they're Luchot, but it's the content of the Luchot that gives them the magical properties, which I'm not sure that's the point of the Agadata. So this is the question I leave you with, right? Is this Agadic tradition possibly reconcilable with the Gemara, in which case it accentuates the point, right? That to use the mashal of the Gemara, right? Even if a Talmid Chacham lost all of his learning, right? He was mamish in he was in a coma, right? You would owe him kavod because once he had the Torah, or whatever you're going to do, right? He has total amnesia, I don't know, right? Or would you say that this midrashic tradition actually thinks that what gives the Luchot their status is their content, and that's why it thinks that as soon as the content left, the magical properties left, in which case it might not be able to hold of this whole midrashic tradition the Bavli has, right? That's what I'm really not sure about. I could see it going either way, but this is what I was thinking about today, and this is always the problem in Agadic traditions, right? You have to figure out, because it's not, we'll see, certain of the Agadic traditions there are clear machlokot, right? The question of whether God commanded Moshe or didn't, that's a clear machlokot, and we'll talk about that on Wednesday, because I hope, if it hadn't been Shushan Purim, it would have been this week. It would have been perfect for KiTISSA. So don't forget the Parsha by next week. And actually, you might be lucky, because you know what the halacha is if an entire Kehillah, you know what we do if an entire Kehillah misses laning.
You do a double Parsha.
You do it the next week. So if, in fact, we ban all shuls this week, which is what Israel is trying to do, so KiTISSA will be next week, in which case, it'll be perfect. On the other hand, I'm also pretty sure it's Vayaka Pekudei, so KiTISSA Vayaka Pekudei will be the longest laning you have ever heard in your entire life.
Wait, what if the entire killer misses that as well?
Well, I saw someone this morning ask, what happens if this goes on for 2 weeks, and you have KiTISSA Vayaka Pekudei Vayikra, which would be the longest laning that has ever happened in the history of the universe.
How do you
and then he was like, and can you do it from 2 Svarim? I don't even know. But if, God forbid, this is what happens next week, so then, in the end of the day, our Agadah this year will work with it. If not, well, we'll all thank God, because that's going to be crazy.